All right, so let's look at an example of using and manipulating the orig shape in a rig setup. So what I've got here is I've just taken a standard Maya mesh, and then I've just rigged it up very simply. I've just used the auto rig for this. Also, quick note, can we take a moment to appreciate how poorly the Maya auto rig places the joints even on their own meshes? It's pretty bad. But anyway, so what I have here is I've just got a character, and on this character I've got first a blend shape coming from another geometry. There's basically this, and then I will have a skin cluster. I've got a delta mush that is that I've just painted in this area, so it's kind of fixing just that. I've got a cluster, and I've got another delta mush to fix that cluster bit. So if I just open up and you can see that I have the cluster here, and then the delta mush is just kind of fixing that. So I've just added in some random kind of deformers here, and the main idea here as well is that I've actually gone and painted the different ones as well. So you can see that I've got on my blend shape, I've painted the weights. On my delta mushes, I've painted up here. I've painted here as well. So you can see we already have like a decent amount of things happening here that could be a bit annoying to reset or redo, depending on, you know, if you don't have like a fully scripted version of this, or have a way to save this out, or even if you have a way to save it out but it's just like very slow. As soon as you get like a new model shape update, then that might be a bit of a pain, and especially if you're working very late and you need to get it out by you're leaving. So this is where the good old org shape comes in. So let's say that we get this as a new model. You know, concepts change, so we might end up with something like this. So we actually want now to have all of the rigging that we have, but on this kind of starting point. So what I'll do is I'll just start out with, I'll take this new shape and I'll take our human body. I'll jump back into the node editor and I'll just get rid of the transforms. We don't need them. And one funny thing that you can see now is that we should be expecting here now to see 3 shapes. We should expect to see one shape for the new geometry, and we should be expecting to see 2 shapes for the human body. We should be expecting to see the actual human body shape and the human body org shape. Now, if you look at this, we actually see that we do have the human body, we do have the new shape, which we'll just put over here. This one we don't need for this, but we actually got a new shape org as well. So what's up with this? Well, this usually comes from any time that you're dealing with, when you duplicate a mesh that already has a shape org on it, it will also duplicate that. So what's probably happened here is, you can imagine if a modeler had some deformers on this or something, where they duplicated out, you know, there are many ways that this can happen. So that's just something to be aware of. We'll talk a bit more about why this is particularly bad, about having multiple org shapes as well in your rig. Basically, it increases your file size, but we'll look a bit more into that later on. So just get rid of that for now. So let's get back to this. I'll do my world mesh to the in mesh of the shape org, and cool, that seems to have done it. But there seems to be some parts missing. So if I take this back, you can see it's not really matching in a lot of these kind of areas here. If I select this underlying here, you can see that it's missing in the arms area, it's missing like in the legs, but it's matching around here. So what's going on here? Well, if I go on here, and what's actually happening is that we've got this blend shape that's overriding that shape as well. So the blend shape is basically, it's just a geometry which I've added a texture deformer on, and that just allows you to do this kind of funky thing. I've added in a 3D noise to it. So you can imagine it's just a setup where they want to be able to push through some random noise on the surface, and this is how I would do it. So that's basically breaking our kind of setup here. So what do we have to do then? Well, we have to go in and update the org shape for this as well. So if we just do that again, I'm going to get rid of those. And now we can see we've got our new shape. And here we're back to what we sort of had in the previous thing as well. We've got our new shape. So take that away. But then you can now see that we've actually got two org shapes again. And again, this is the same thing that's happened previously. Like probably here, the rigger, actually I know because I did it, the rigger duplicated the mesh that already had an org shape and then added a deformer to it, basically creating a new org shape because Maya doesn't take that into account. So we can see which one we want to keep by the one that has the actual outputs. So I'll just get rid of this. And I'll just go now and do the world mesh to the in mesh again. Now that's updated. And if I hide this, we can now see that our new shape and our human body is matching again. The only difference that we have is the texture deformer that's just adding this difference. So that's basically it. As long as you understand that kind of main concept there, you can have a lot of really powerful setups going on with this. One thing that I would actually recommend, and one thing that we will be doing when we get into actually rigging up the character, is that if I know that I have a lot of shapes, like duplicate shapes around in my rig that are exactly the same, I will often create like an input group or like an in mesh, so that, which is then connecting up to all of these org shapes, so that if I do get a model update, I can just connect directly to all of that. So let's have a quick look at that. I'll just reset the scene and then come back to you guys. All right, and I'm back. So again, I've opened up the scene that we started with. So we now know that we need to update both of these org shapes here. So let's see if we can't find a way to do that a bit easier. Like I said, we can then add in basically an input mesh. Let's just call it like human body input. And what I'll do now is, I know that from what we talked about previously, that sometimes I'll duplicate the org shape. So I'll make sure that I just get rid of this, so that I basically just have this one shape in here now. And what I'll do is I'll do exactly the same as I did with the new shape, but I'll just do it with the input shape instead. So I'll just go, and first off, I'm just going to go and clear these and just clean up those, just so that's done. And yep, that all looks good. So let me just take all these now, add them in. I'll get rid of my transforms, and I'll get rid of the blend shape geo. We don't need that. We don't need the human body shape, and we just need the input and the org shapes for those two. So I'll just do exactly what I did previously. I'll do the world mesh to the in mesh, and I'll do that. So now we just have that main input there again. I probably did a bit of a bad thing here now. I just realized, because I duplicated out the body input while the this human body was actually already having like a deformation on it. So I'm actually duplicating that out. But that's a really simple fix now, because I can just go and change these things. So actually you can see now that if I select these two, if I go on the, oh no, it looks like I actually did that okay. Cool. Well, so now what we have is, if I can just move this off to the side a bit here. What I can do now is I can just take my new shape, I can go on to my human input, and I can just blend shape it. I don't have to go in and worry about doing any like crazy connections or anything. I can just blend shape it and turn it on and off and see that all of those changes are actually going through now. So that's basically, I can just call this input group as well. So this might not be super useful to a lot of you in terms of, it depends on what kind of geometry that you deal with. But I myself find that, especially when I was working on like very high-end rigs at MPC, just because of the sheer amount of like different meshes, or we would have a lot of different meshes in the rig to do different rigging on it. You would have a lot of kind of similar versions of the mesh, or you would have kind of versions of the mesh that was cut out to be like just a torso or something. And as soon as you then have to go around and you get a model update and making sure that all of those different things are updated so that one thing isn't overriding it, having a sort of input system like this is extremely beneficial.